And here's the next. Out here in the forest with a separated Tobruk.
34. Cable. Panzerwerk.
Yeah. I absolutely love that the writing is still in place.
We are going back to an old battlefield, the lines of the Pomeranian, where I want to look at an actual battlefield, trenches, bunkers, and several lines of defenses and all. And I'm going to start with the forward line. Now, you may remember the huge bivouac we visited some time ago. That's part of the third line of defenses here. So today we're going a little further, to the smallest combat shelters, and the very nicely camouflaged ones. The Pomeranian, also known as the Pomeranian Wall, Germany's pre-World War II way of saying, hey Poland, let's keep this neighborly thing civil, shall we? Pictured as the ultimate passive-aggressive fence-building project, but with a lot more concrete and a lot fewer HOA complaints. The Pomeranian was a line of fortification stretching across Pomerania, a region, what is now northwestern Poland, stretched all the way down to the Istwald in the central western Poland. Germany began this in 1930-32, after the Treaty of Versailles had redrawn the map and left them feeling just a little exposed next to the Second Polish Republic and their 500,000 soldiers they could actually field at this time. Think of it as the Weimar Republic's version of a security blanket, except this blanket was made of steel-reinforced concrete and bristling with bunkers, over 1,000 of them here. And when Hitler came to power in 1933, the construction picked up speed, of course. By 1934, things got serious. No longer just small fighting shelters and pack garages. Now the Germans rolled out huge bunkers that could double as the world's gloomiest vacation homes. But not just your average garden shed at all. Some of these were huge fighting bunkers with 6 embrasure turrets, observation towers. You know, the perfect way of keeping an eye on your neighbor while having a little schnapps in the winter, you know. And the Polish military doctrine after World War I was an offensive one. In order to protect the Gdansk corridor, the Poles planned to possibly attack East Germany in the event things went, sideways. I can't say how this could possibly happen. Remember, until 1933, Germany only had 100,000 strong Reichswehr, against which Poland could field an army of 500,000. In the 1920s, the Reichswehr had only 1 infantry division in Pomerania, capable of defending a maximum of 70 kilometers, the border, and the Pomeranian section was over 300 kilometers long. Analysis and war games conducted by the Germans led them to the conclusion that the only reasonable solution was to build fortifications. The general assumption was that the Pomeranian position was to be the so-called fortified field position, not far removed from the later part of World War I, consisting mainly combat facilities, maximum average strength built in peacetime. After the announcement of mobilization, however, this was to be supplemented by obstacles, fortifications made of wood and earth. It was assured that the position should be able to hold an attacking troop for at least 2 weeks until these reinforcements would arrive from the interior of the country. That seems optimistic to me. From the summer of 1944, practically until the arrival of the Russian and Polish troops, hectic efforts were suddenly made to replenish and adapt the Pomeranian position to the current war as it actually was, and the battle was fought out here. This first line was a linear series of bunkers with low resistance, Class C, almost less than a meter reinforced concrete and 60 millimeters of armor. They were designed in the areas where the fortifications intersected the main roads. The structures with increased strength, such as the B1, 1 meter reinforced concrete and 100 millimeter of armor were built. Operational corridors and places that were easy to bypass would be reinforced with the Class B structures, reinforced by 1.5 meters of concrete and 200 millimeter of armor plate. 250 millimeter thick armored domes, which could withstand fire from a 210 millimeter caliber artillery. All facilities received their code names already at the design stage in the form of text, tactical symbols, the abbreviations of which were used on maps and in written documents. These were letters, numeric markings related to the order of the bunker along the position. Now you know what they are when you look at them. And its location, of course. They were later applied with oil paint through stencil inside all the bunkers, or on one of the walls at the entrances to the facility. The coding system was, of course, being German, changed 3 times of the years, 1932 to 44, just to confuse the rest of us.
Nothing more important than a road network that needs to be defended. Right here, we're looking at part of the Pomeranian line. Now, of course, if the truck would get out of the way, you see it. It's important to defend important road intersections. Today, this is basically a small town in Poland. Here's what you're looking at. A Pomeranian. You see what I'm saying? Let me explain to you. Half of that house is not actually a house.
This is an amazing piece of construction. From this old house, the lower level was carved out and replaced with a reinforced bunker with firing ports in the lower floor. You can still see the ventilation pipe stick out here, but the firing ports have been covered up since. Also, the remains of the low reinforced entrance doors remains.
See the steel hinges that are still in place? And a little indent for a field telephone. See the cement is built in.
Unfortunately, nobody was home on the day I was there, but I do want to come back and see if I can't get a peek inside.
This is excellent camouflage.
Now, further up the same road, there's the first puck garage overlooking the city, the first of many.
And down here from the camouflaged building is a puck garage, right here, on top. In here you'd have a small Puck 36 that they would roll out round to position right on top of the bunker. And the position would be right here, right to the back of the bunker, facing down the road, down the hill here. Of course, you'd imagine the trees not being there at that time. But at least here, the original doors for the Puck garage is intact. And we've seen everything else. We've seen a lot of these throughout. But here's finally with the door in. And even the crew compartment door as well. That's a good start.
Further back, next in line, and from here, I'll work myself down towards this line, back towards the heavy bivouac positions, so you can see for yourself.
And you see here, the forest floor is intersected with trenches. There used to be tank barriers, landmines, barbed wire, there's bunkers all over the place. And this was part of the Pomeranian. This construction started in 1934, but it really didn't see its baptism and fire till 1945, where there was heavy fighting here in the forest. So I'm going to take a look and see if I can find the bunker that should be in here. Maybe we'll take a look and see where the trenches go. All zigzag trenches, but it's a nice day for a walk. And when we see the trenches are right in the outskirts of this forest path. The forest over there could be newer, but at least there's a little field in front, which explains why they're here. Let's go have a look at the trenches just for the heck of it. See, here they just run. It's amazing how many trench systems there truly are in these forests. And I don't know why I'm not just following the trench system, because, well, we all know that's going to lead me to a bunker. But these were well dug, not shallow at all. And then here should be the bunker, so there's going to be a strong point in dispersing them. But the bunker was built in 34. I think it's right over there, yes. I think it is. Yes, it is. Alright. So the trenches are circling this one. This looks like a puck garage. It certainly does. It does look like a puck garage. No, wait a minute now. No. There's a huge mounting for a Panzerplatte here. Well, I guess we're just going to go inside and find out. See these mountings? They're for a steel plate, not for a door. So here was a firing position. Oh, there's writing on the wall. So it is very low. Mountings. Wood in the walls. I don't know how much lower the floor would have been, imagining some, but not much. I'm a bit crouched in here. Oh, well, what have we here? We have another door. Damn, somebody took the ladder. Oh, you evil people, you took the ladder? So this is a two-story bunker, and right here next to me is the rear protection. Means the entrance is right over here. Something right in there, leaked. So this would have been the entrance. Yeah. Okay, trench leading right to it, but I will say this is a very small entrance. Something that I see synonymous of the, well, there you have it. Something I see synonymous of the east wall. Here you go. Baujahr 1934. If you had any doubt, this is when this was constructed. There's some writing in here as well. I missed. Belüftung. So here was the air ventilation. I can't believe it. There's an underground, I can't get there. Ah, evil, evil, evil. I just don't have a ladder with me. And the crawling on this and that. Well, I'll give it a shot, maybe. I've done dumber things. Let's see what's outside here. This is a very, very crouching walk, but you're right in the trench. So they really incorporated the 1945 position with the bunkers here. Yeah, this was not supposed to be any bigger than this. And the roof is probably only about a meter, get inside, meter and a half. And here's the field. You have a good vision right here. You're slightly protected by trees, but you can still see what's going on. Very good. I'm very surprised. So whether it would have been a anti-tank gun or a machine gun, heavy machine gun there, it would have been watching this field in this direction, and the trenches are facing in that direction. The enemy, when the Russians finally came in 45, certainly came from a slightly different direction than the possibility of had the Poles attacked in 1939, 38, or 34 as this was built. And here, a few kilometers from the front line down there, is another section here with a small cluster of bunkers connected by trenches. There was lots of minefields, anti-tank obstacles up here. They're sort of constructed in the dimensions of a diamond, and I'm gonna try to see if I can find, there should be a shelter first and then some fighting positions, and a little unclear exactly where these all are, but the trenches are running in there. Maybe we're better off just following the trenches. I appreciate somebody's taking care of these and even tried to put up a little marker sign, but something happened to the nature around here But I was correct. The trenches are leading straight to it because it's in here. Now these trees are obviously very young and newly planted. So here it is. I was sitting down there. I could just have followed the trenches and it would have led me right here. Big note about this, but first I just want to point out here you had what you see on the east wall, catching debris from covering up the front. And what I was saying is there's an interesting construction note that this was built in 1934 and rebuilt in 1936, or reconfigured to hold 9 soldiers, 9 beds in here. And you see all the holders on the wall. You see the mounts for the beds there. And initially this was something else. Well, the emergency exit is fairly well marked, almost practically next to the original entrance, which is a little troubling. I absolutely love that the writing is still in place. There you go, construction year 1934. Now, what this was or supposed to have been, I am not clear on. I'm not actually entirely sure what this was for. There's a wooden plate there. Don't know if that would have been a single, would have been a little oven, a little bunker oven. And then this indent had an original use for something else, maybe a small desk. It's a little hard for me to tell, to be honest. And you know, hooks up here as well, also for the top of the beds, but they're sort of in the wrong place. But anyway, people might argue logic, here they are. Very small little shelter. Now let's see what the dudes in here was expected to fight out of. Except, of course, the trenches that run everywhere. And way down there, the trenches run all the way through the forests here to the next position, which, well, it's in here somewhere. And I'm thinking it is a MG position, small bunker. And remember here, they're all very low to the ground. Some of this forest is relatively young and some of it isn't. But camouflage has certainly been a key. Where's this damn thing? I'm really looking. I mean, really. Well, here's the trenches again. All I can do is sort of assume that the bunker is in the vicinity. And here was a little forward machine gun position, or observation position in the trench. Right here. I think it's a little bit further back. There's no coordinate on this, although I will make one now. Promise you that. So there's trenches everywhere here. And this is again from the fighting in 44. It might be over here. Maybe I see something over there. I will absolutely drop a pin on my map for you guys. Yeah, maybe I'm seeing something. Maybe. Yeah, see an entrance. There it is. I'm just going to fly over the trench. I'll see you over there. See how the trench turns in between these trees? Now I'll get over to it. The bunker here. Outstandingly well hidden. Still today. Ooh, I'm looking at a close defensive position. and the trenches ran right to it. Here. Don't know if they ran right through the door. We wouldn't have to. But we're looking at this small 1934 construction again. Let's go ahead and see what we can see without falling in a little hole here. 1934 construction. A bit of sand in here. Emergency exit, in case you had any doubt. It says so. And then here, another Panzerplatte. Yeah, it's interesting. This is firing almost in direction. It's almost firing in the direction of the shelter. Almost the direction we came from. Looking at out in the trench there to the right. Yep. Big screws. Here was a steel plate with an MG or a cannon. Ventilation, heater, close defensive position, light, then probably a table and some beds in here. I love when there's authentic writing on the walls. I really do. Alright. I don't know who and why they blocked the emergency exit after the fact. It's completely open, but that's okay. Cable, just in case you had any doubt. And cable there. And yeah, awesome. So these really are almost World War I style pillboxes, augmenting a trench position. That really is what we're looking at. These are smaller shelters with a few heavy weapons and a lot of trenches tying it together. And out front, anti-tank obstacles, barbed wire, landmines, you know, all that fun stuff you always put out before your neighbors come visiting. And if you ever had a doubt on what a vehicle trench looks like in the forest, well, this would be it. With the trench lines back here. It's new, and it's not likely it's a reproduction. This really is like World War I. Trench systems everywhere here. It's actually quite interesting how they just crisscross, parallel, intersect, and zigzag, just like the trenches of World War I. It is, in this part of the Pomeranian line, I'm going to say, a little bit of lack of innovation on the German General Staff, because this is, well, a little bit outdated in a way of setting up a defense in a what is now or to come a mobile air and tank war. But of course, it probably, or I would say definitely, it matched the Polish capabilities for offense in 1934. So you're building here to defend against what you knew the enemy had and could do. Why is it turning? I'm trying to follow. It's not turning. It's just splitting. Very complex though. And following the trenches had once again brought success. This is right there. And Lord knows if I hadn't followed the trenches, but what little paths are here, I would never have found this in a million years. Oh, trenches again. This is really something. And I am under the impression that These were built, the trenches as well, in 1934 they were laid out, but they weren't fought over until 1944. Okay, so what do we have? I actually have no idea what we have until I get inside. But certainly 1934 construction. I'm not just saying that because I'm clever, but because, again, it says right there. And here's the emergency exit. Little overhang. Bunker oven. Alright, let's go inside. See what's here. Besides mosquitoes. Oh, we are, that's weird. I think we have come full circle on the line and it is now facing the other direction. Because I think the fighting front have now turned to here. Now I don't really feel I have swung around, but this is now where we're fighting at. And again, there would have been a steel plate here with a PAC or an MG and lots of indents in the walls. And of course, close defensive position. Beluftung, this is really nice. All writings here, that's really nice. And here was a heavy shelf for something. And by the emergency exit for cables. So electricity ran too, as well as communication. Rifle rack. Oh, makes sense. Alright, well now, this is the last one in this little cluster. That's rebar, not a branch. Whoever pried this out of here, or this off here, tore that up. All the bolts and the nuts for the steel plate. And again, we'll be looking about a meter of roof. So now we circle around to the front where the next one is, down there. And here somebody have been ruthless enough to place a new road cutting the trenches. But here are the trenches again. Continues on to the next. Let's just go in here. It's in here somewhere. This really is interesting to see a trench system that is so reminiscent of World War I. And there is the next. So yes, I could just have stayed in the trench system. Let's take the trench line. Let's do it. Well, there's a tree in the way. That's very unfortunate. Somebody put up a sign. Tell me what it is. That's actually nice. No, they didn't. They just put up a sign. Here you have all the different trenches leading to it. And here's the next one. I will say it looks very much like what we've seen before. And I think that was a little bit of the intent, that a lot of these smaller field shelters are very similar. And the bigger ones in the cities, well, by denote how bigger. Oh, well, there's no build gear in here. It is generally constructed the same, outfitted the same, and you have, or you had, an AT or MG here. So these are, except for the small shelter, identical. Okay, they're not entirely identical. a little different. And the emergency exit is quite a bit larger too, I'll be honest. Actually, that is a rather large exit. Open the bunker stove sitting in there. And the usual entrance and outfits. And here you see again the steel, the rebar. So this is an example of how the Pomeranian actually would look in practice in the field. Where in the cities had smaller hidden bunkers or larger hidden bunkers. But this is not synonymous with this is all the Pomeranian was. Because I have seen some massive bunkers built in '34 for this Pomeranian as well. So if we go a little bit further back from here towards Germany, or German lines as you will, I would imagine we're going to find bigger bunkers as blocking positions. This being the forward line, and therefore full of trenches and smaller bunkers, just like the National Line was. Forward of the big ouvrages, you had these smaller positions, bunkers, pillboxes, just like here. Here on the other side of the road, there are several bunkers that are blown up and destroyed in there. There's a few B-Werks that I can't quite find because there's no mapping, no GPS on them. Here by the road is another one. There's these little PAC or MG nests with a steel plate for road defense. It's a little bigger than the last one. Have the usual close defensive. And I think there's a little crew room in here as well. There is. This is a little bigger. Oh, okay, this is nice. So here for the crews. And for all the beds, and you can actually almost still see the indents in the walls of where the beds were, the bed posts. Emergency exits, of course. It's nice to see that everything is still written here. And the entrance itself. Again, a fairly small door. This was fairly customary in the 34, 35. So a lot of these, and like I said, in the woods over here are larger bunkers with steel domes. Destroyed, and the steel domes are missing. They're kind of hard to find. And here's more overgrown trenches. And here's something quite a bit larger, as I expected. Let me explain where we are. We are about 2 kilometers behind the trenches we initially saw with the small bunkers there. Now there's more trenches, of course, but we're getting into something bigger. There's some heavier bunkers with steel domes. There's some B-Werks, if I can find them, and obviously this one have been demolished to some degree. There should have been a steel dome on this. Don't know if it's still there. I would be very surprised if it is, obviously, but considering it's been blown up. But again, built 1934, cable, Panzerwerk 992. Emergency exit. That is far more covered up than what you could say is the entrance. Now, And this is the other entrance, so this is not exactly that destroyed. That's actually rather weird because it looked, well, one of these, the scrappers left this, I can't believe it. Alright, now I'm seeing the problem. Here was a steel dome. Right here was one of the steel domes. This is the dome well, not that deep. It was probably a Panzerton, with a flat back and a bit of rebar here. Yeah, that's what that was. Here was a Panzerton. And here's a little lake down there, you can barely see it. And now this line of bunkers connects through the forest in bunkers like this to all the way up to the first position. So it makes sense that there are heavier positions on the back of these. So behind the front line, a couple of kilometers back, is the next line, still intersected with trenches, but with bigger bunkers. And behind this, further back, is another line with very large B-Werks. The steel dome would have been sitting behind that large tree, looking out over this plateau here, which almost looks like it was a anti-cavalry grave. It's very wide. You'll put obstacles in the center of it, get the horses entangled. This is how cavalry graves looked, except there's a lake to my right, so I find that rather implausible, but in tune with what was built in East Prussia. And here's the next. Out here in the forest with a separated Trebruck. Haven't seen that before. I usually see them built together, but this is interesting. Again, it's an early build year. You had a steel plate over here, Panzerplatte, with a machine gun or an MG, or an AT, I mean. Not entirely sure, but certainly there was damage done to the structure. This is probably from when they removed the steel plate. I don't see any battle damage on this. I see, unfortunately, yes I do. Unfortunately I see it's full of crap, but that kind of happens. But no, I do see damage to this structure. Now that I'm looking at it, it did look like it suffered an explosion. I think some of them were demolished or blown up in various ways, as we have seen so often. And here's still a little bit of the original writing left. And still have the main room with the bedroom here with the wood in the walls, hooks in the ceiling for the beds, sort of where I expect them to be, honestly. And here you had, could be a Maxim, could also be an AT gun with that mount. It's hard to say. There's no information on the number of this. Of course, full of tires, but we already knew it was World War II. And a lot of wood on the walls for beds in here. I can't possibly be one of the original chains. What? Yeah, I think it is. I think there's one of the original bed chains. It is. Well, it's amazing that thing's still hanging here. That's something, isn't it? Light him up here. And for the Luftung. Yeah, this wall definitely took the brunt of something. It looks like a charge that was put inside. But as you can all see, this is much larger and than what we've seen before. This is the entrance, same small door, wood in all walls, even here. Now we get an idea of the rebar and the pipes that's still running through, and get out to the road. I'm imagining there was probably a road here before. Interesting how the steel cover for the door doesn't go all the way around, but it's only an upper. Usually that's a full metal circle. And here again, well, of course everything is removed for that door, unfortunately. I'm wondering if the forest road I'm standing next to is not new. This had a fighting direction to the left, which would be east. That makes sense. Let's take a look at this little Tobruk. They built an enormous amount of these as well, as they are easy to build. They're numerous. They're everywhere. For a machine gun or a Panzerfaust later. It's just interesting that it's not connected. Alright, you get the idea. The Tobruk here, and the bunker, and here you have trenches. Lots and lots of trenches that are just cutting through the forest in every direction again. Trenches were just as popular back then as they are today. You had the bigger bunker here, separated from the Tobruk. That's very interesting, very strange. And I'm guessing there's a trench running behind the Tobruk that would at one point have connected with the trench systems here. And the trenches lead deep into the woods and connects to more. I said they built a lot of Tobruks, and they built a lot of hut garages.
You may remember some of the finds we found before the big bivouac bunker to the rear of the position. These small hidden observation bunkers carved into the cemetery, and the huge bivouacs down along this line that were been all demolished by the Russians since. But it gives you a fairly well idea of how these three lines of defense were actually constructed. Next time in Lines, we are going to visit a similar fortified bunker line, but in East Prussia. These fortified lines are fun to explore. It's really enjoyable to work your way from one bunker to the other following the trenches. And before you ask, yes, I know I should be doing this with a metal detector because a battle was fought here, soldiers ran up and down, some lived and some died here, and the ground is full of artifacts, no doubt. But I'm going to continue to map them out and walk them. And then when I get old and gray and walk slower, I'll get myself a metal detector.
My name is Tino Struckmann. I run Lost Battlefields. Every year, I travel around the world to try to bring you to all the most interesting historical military locations from modern wars and World War II special projects, battlefields, forts, fortresses, and tunnels, everything else. Things you may not be able to see or go to yourselves. Please join me on Patreon or join Lost Battlefields through the website so you get access to all my files and my notes. It really does help, and like, follow, share here on the channel if you can. That helps too.